Hello fellow Earthlings, it's Libs, and today I'm going to be recommending 10 books for a hot girl winter. Now, we've all seen the millions of recommendations of books for a hot girl summer. Well, it's currently 11 degrees Celsius outside. It is freezing and I am not in the mood for reading a book about a romantic summer holiday or any summery books that everyone is talking about. I cannot relate to that feeling right now. So instead I'm going to do a winter version of books that are either taking place in winter or have more mysterious tones to them that suit the winter vibes. This lighting is shocking, but the daylight has gone so quickly that this is what we're apparently stuck with. Oh, what if I go here? Okay, if I stand close it looks better. But here we go. Let's get started. Oh gosh, let's get started. Now, what classifies as a hot girl winter book? Do not ask me, even though this was my terrible-ish idea. It's mainly going to just be kind of more sort of intellectually books, but some mystery thrown in there as well. I don't really know. I just thought this would be fun, and I've kind of just picked out 10 books that I've enjoyed that I think feel in my soul like hot girl winter books, whatever that actually means. So the first book I am going to recommend is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr something. This is a book set in World War II, and it's about this blind French girl and this orphaned German boy who is kind of... he goes to a school for smart boys run by the Nazis, and it's about the two of them trying to do the best they can in the circumstances that they're in. They're both in very difficult situations, and it's this beautifully written book about them growing up during this time period. And the chapters are minute. They're all like 3 to maybe 5 pages, and I just flew through this book even though it's 500 pages. But it is so beautifully written, and it's just a great book to curl up with a blanket and read. It's so beautiful, and reading about Germany in the winter, it feels like here right now, and so I could relate to that feeling. The next book I'm going to recommend is Restless by William Boyd. This is kind of a spy thriller. It's told in 2 points of view. One is Ava, an English spy a spy for England during the Second World War, and the other point of view is from her daughter during the 70s, and it's about her daughter learning about what her mother did during the Second World War and why she thinks someone is now out to get her. I love this book so much. I'm not as interested in the chapters about the daughter at the beginning, but it gets better later on. But I just love this book. I think it's just so interesting to put the pieces together, and it's very well written. I'd also really, really recommend the limited series starring Hayley Atwell. That is fantastic. That's where I found out about this book, from watching that, and I would recommend anyone watch that because that was such a great adaptation. It's probably one of the best adaptations I've ever seen. Then for a memoir or a mythobiography, if you will, is Sammy, A New Spelling of My Name by Audre Lorde. I read this memoir-ish last year, and it is phenomenal. It's one of the best memoirs I've ever read. It's just kind of going over Audre Lorde's life as a child, and I think it ends when she's about 25, and it just explores her life, her discovering her sexuality, her going through trauma, and also traveling and seeing different things and experiencing so much. And it's just so beautifully written. This was my first introduction to Audre Lorde, and it's phenomenal. I could not recommend this enough. It's just so great, and it's great for just imagining being somewhere warm and sunny like Mexico instead of being in the middle of winter. I have another darker book to recommend, and that is The Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. This has been everywhere recently. This book is, again, told from two points of view. One is about this pilot in the early 20th century, and she is kind of learning how to become a pilot, and one day she is flying across the globe and she disappears, and the other point of view is the movie star who's going to be portraying her in a film. I don't want to say much more than that. It's just a beautiful, beautiful story, and it's so well crafted. I loved this so much, could not recommend more. Another more mysterious book I have to recommend is Mrs. March by Virginia Fietto. I had mixed feelings about this book, mainly because I could kind of tell where it was going, but I think it's just a really great wintry read, and I would recommend it if you haven't read it already. It's about this woman who discovers that her husband's an author, and she discovers that her husband has written a book about this awful, awful woman, but this awful woman resembles her, and it's about her becoming more and more paranoid about what her husband and other people are thinking about her. And it's just a very interesting, quite a little bit gross read, but it's really fun. Talking about slightly gross and weird books, I want to recommend Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. This is the only short story collection I've ever given 5 stars to. It's quite horror-y, and it has a lot of horror and magical realism elements, and it is phenomenal. I couldn't recommend it more. Now for a classic, I'd like to recommend Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. This is my second du Maurier. This is about this young woman whose parents die, and she goes to live with her aunt and uncle out in essentially the middle of nowhere, and her uncle owns and works at this place called Jamaica Inn, and it's super isolated, and the only people who go there tend to be criminals. And I don't want to say more than that. It's just a story about this girl overcoming dealing with this man who wants to destroy her spirit. And it's got a very interesting ending. Now for non-fiction, I'd like to recommend Who Gets to Be Smart by Bree Lee. This was my favourite book of 2021. It is about what it says it's about, but mainly looking at Australia and how policy is made so that certain people who come from more money are able to get a better education, and if you don't come from money, you're just not going to be given the same opportunities. I love this book so much. Now I'd like to recommend The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Agawa. This is a tiny book. You'll fly through it. It's about this housekeeper and her 10-year-old son, and the housekeeper is working for this older gentleman. He was a maths professor, and he has a brain injury where he can't remember more than 80 minutes at a time, so he always forgets who she is every day. But they develop this really important relationship, and he adores her son, and it's just such a beautiful book. I never thought I'd enjoy a book where math is such an important theme, but this is a phenomenal read, and it made me really emotional. And then the final book I'd like to recommend is another more mysterious thriller, and this is Lullaby by Layla Slimani. was another one of my favourite books from 2021. This is straight away, you know that the nanny kills the children, and then the book reflects on her life leading up until the point that she does this without ever trying to justify it. It's a very emotional book, obviously, but it's just well worth the read. And this one is, unfortunately, it doesn't have the translator on here. That's annoying. Oh. And it's just such an interesting book to experience, and just perfect for hiding away in this cold weather. Okay, so those are all my recommendations for curling up in the middle of winter. Let me know what books you enjoy this time of year down below, and I will see you next time. Bye.